Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited podcast. I am Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And we've got a fun episode here this week. We have Ashay, who is a, how would you describe her?
I mean, she's been someone who has been like a life coach-esque, healing, inspiring woman for years, mostly revolving, I would say, around women, food, and more recently sexuality. And now she is partnering with her partner
Lucian.
on what?
Lucian.
Oh yeah, Lucian. And they are connecting about really beautiful relationship, sexual, all the things that come along with that. Kind of like what we're doing, but just in, their own unique, authentic way. And it's really beautiful and an honor to host them and have them here and get to know them and have this conversation because, we need more people inspiring couples to be their authentic, most connected self and show up with love and not fear.
Totally.
And challenge each other to be their whole selves and be vulnerable and raw and all of that.
Yeah, and I want to say, I know a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are women who follow Sophie and are part of the kind of philosophy babe movement. But I know there are also a lot of men who listen because you guys write to me. And so I have to say, as a man, a lot of the sort of conversations that we have today would have been difficult for me probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. There's a lot of, getting in touch with yourself and talking about the feminine energy that is present in men and women and all that sort of stuff. And so this isn't a word of caution, but instead it's what I want people to really pay attention to and listen is more in how Ashay and Lucian relate to one another and kind of the conversation that we have with them and not get too stuck on terms. Because I feel like, we talk quite a bit about masculinity and being, men kind of being threatened, not quite a bit. We talk about it a little bit about for men, protecting their masculinity a lot of times can be sort of like a reason for a duel and dying, right? It's you'll go to your grave to defend that. And I think unfortunately that's a problem for us sometimes because we'll go to the grave to defend that, even though it might not be useful to do it. And so there are a lot of things that I find really interesting in this conversation with them. They're a pretty new couple. And so I'm really interested and excited to see where this relationship goes. But they've definitely done a lot of deep digging work.
Yeah, I think, time is relative. And it's interesting that if you've done the work yourself personally and really show up to yourself and dig in and do that deep work on a personal level, and then you attract someone on your wavelength, because we're only attracting those people on your wavelength on a day-to-day basis. Like the people you run into on a day-to-day basis are there for your learning, for your growth. They're meeting you where you are. So the person that you attract after you've done all this work to be your partner is there because they're meeting you where you are. And
sure.
So yeah, I mean, they're a relatively new couple, but their work is deep and their soulful connection is very deep.
Yeah, and we could tell, there were a lot of really cool elements of the conversation in terms of the work that they've already done.
Yeah, we took actually some really fun things that they shared during, and I'm excited for you all to hear some of these tips and some advice and some fun things they do that really inspired us as well.
Yeah, and one of the things that is actually really nice about listening to a couple who's early in their relationship is a lot of times
it reignites you.
Yeah, many of us who have been in a relationship for 10, 11, 12, 15, 20, 30 years, we always talk about wanting to reconnect to that thing. So sometimes there's actually, if you let go of the judgment piece to it, you can actually really listen to what is it that's new and unique and exciting. And that does have to do with the relationship tip that we have for today. Maybe we can even kind of go to that because I think we'll kind of expound on it a little bit. And one of the things, I got this from the conversation with them, and I really liked it. But the relationship that I have this week is, what can you do to begin reconnecting to all the different sides of yourself that you've neglected over the years or over the decades? And again, this comes from our conversation. Sophie gave me a quote: "Your fear of looking stupid is holding you back."
Yeah, and this applies to everything. Your fear of looking stupid is holding you back. What are you holding back from because you are afraid that you're going to look silly or stupid or dumb? What are you not
relaxing around?
Yeah.
Are you not singing more? Are you not playful? And the way it really came up in this is, do you remember what you were like early on in a relationship, and the amount of fun you were able to have? And it was two-sided, because on one side of the argument, you're trying to present your best self oftentimes, but on the other side, you're also more able to relax and have fun and enjoy yourself, and there's less judgment.
There's less responsibilities at the beginning of a relationship. You're just getting together and having fun for the most part. So there's not like a responsibility to each other. You don't owe the other person anything. You're just free.
Yeah.
Like, you just want to have fun and enjoy each other.
But there's so much in even just what you said right now about you don't owe the other person anything. Look, the only thing you owe the other person later on in a relationship is their trust and their ability to hold your trust. So it's kind of like,
for sure. But I do think it just becomes, at least the perception for me, is that it becomes more strenuous, stressful, because we have such strong ties. Like, I am the mother of your children.
You are.
I help pay the bills.
You definitely do.
Help the house maintain its X, Y, and Z. Like, those things can create a feeling of stress and tension, and that I owe something to you as your partner.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I loved in this concept. And again, you'll hear it later in the episode, but naming your characters, right?
Yeah, I loved that part.
So we talked about, I have my serious work Adi, and we got to give him a name of some sort. But then there's the more playful, artistic guitar playing version.
Yeah.
Or, when we go out partying and we're hanging out and we stay up late at night dancing to EDM music, that's a different side,
yeah.
right?
Can we go to that right now?
No, you're pregnant, babe.
Damn it.
Yeah. Sorry.
How many more minutes of pregnancy?
I can calculate that while you talk in the next segment, but thousands of more minutes. But what I love about the idea of naming it is, you start recognizing that there are these other sides to me, and you stop waiting for something else on the outside to trigger them. Because so many times in life, we think that if the right thing happens around us, we'll be able to have fun. That's not the way things work. You used to have fun all the time, and you brought the fun.
Yeah, it's an internal journey.
So if I can say to myself, oh, I'm in serious worker AD mode at 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. tomorrow, or at 8 p.m. the next day, I really want to have some fun AD time, I can start getting connected to, what does that mean? What does AD put himself in? What state do I put myself in to go to that place? And then it's my responsibility to help get myself there.
And it's both sides. It's that, and then it's also me having the awareness that instead of just being resentful or angry that you're being in the worker AD at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I want the snuggly AD or whatever, it allows me to have the language to communicate my need and not be mad and just go to bed angry, and instead be like, can the AD come out and play that's more snuggly? Yeah. I really want him. And then you hear it as another version of who you are, and not a judgment, rejection. Totally. Yeah, or judgment.
Totally. And the fact that we all know we have these sides to ourselves puts, I think, by itself a little playful element into life, because you're right, life just gets more serious, right? We're 2 kids, a third on the way, the rent is more expensive, blah, all this stuff is there. And we get DMs and emails and letters from you guys telling us, yeah, but I have a long distance relationship, or all these other things that you guys haven't talked about are going on in my life. And we will absolutely get to a lot of these. I just want you to pay attention to the fact that those are all details. At the core of the relationship
big picture.
Yeah. Can you understand each other? Can you trust each other? Can you build whatever systems you need to have in your relationship to make that good? Like, we know, we have a set of friends who just had their first kid right now. they had a 4.5-year long distance relationship because he went to medical school on the other side of the country. It's all possible. You have to put the work in and be thinking very proactively about what is it that I want out of this relationship, and then all the other stuff we've talked about over time. I got to ask for it. I have to figure out how to show up for my partner who wants things from me as well, not make this a one-sided kind of equation. And I think what I loved about this tip is I start connecting. And I totally agree that by understanding and labeling your other personalities, not only do we get to have fun with it, but I get to also name,
vocalize what it is that you're wanting in detail in a way
that you understand.
In a way I understand it.
And it's like the love languages and like so many of the other things we've talked about, that becomes really, really important in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely.
So tune in, pay attention to what's going on. I love when we have other couples on because it's kind of fun to banter back and forth. And they have their own courses and all these other things that are going on. So
retreats coming up.
So we will leave it there. Their workshops and retreats are probably a little bit more sexual than ours, which is all the more power to them and fun for whoever's participating. It should be a really, really good time. And we will make sure to include as much of that information as we can in the show notes.
Thanks for listening, guys. Enjoy.
See you on the other side.
This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fix all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the interview portion of our Ignited podcast. We've got an exciting couple here today, and there's going to be a lot to dive in, so I have no idea how long this is going to last, but it's all good. We'll just go with it. We've got Ashay and Lucian in the house, and I am really excited. This is the second time we've had a couple on, and it's kind of funny because Ignited is about relationships, but a lot of times we talk about it somewhat indirectly or about different kind of relationships in life, and this is, I have a feeling this is going to dive right into the core of what romantic relationships and your relationships to other people are about. So this is going to be really, really fun. But I'd love to have you introduce yourselves to the listeners, kind of tell us what you're about, what you're excited about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey everyone, I'm Ashay, and I'm super excited to be here, first of all, and to be sharing everything that Lucian and I have been up to lately. We've been launching our new platform called Love Codes, and we are so inspired about bringing codes, bringing wisdom to the world around how to create the most expansive, sovereign, empowered relationship, intimate relationship with each other, while also arriving at the best version of ourselves. And so we really use our relationship as this crucible, as this place to really dive deep into all of the ways in which our personal relationship can expand and grow and evolve and become its best version of itself, so that we can then offer that wisdom and that opportunity for others. So that's what I want to share. Do you want to share what's up?
Yeah. I mean, I just add to that like my passion and joy is understanding myself. And I really started that path 5 years ago. And in this relationship, I've really been able to take that process to the next level because a big part of my practice became treating every single relationship that I had in my life, every moment, as a reflection of my inner divinity, and to look for the symbols and the cues and the signs that were coming through in the reflection, and whether that person was reflecting my shadow or whether they were reflecting my light or they were giving me a model for how consciousness can play out. I started treating life like an amazing journey of human alchemy. And it's really in this relationship that idea of human alchemy, you just take to a whole nother level, because when you have a space of trust and safety and connection and love as the root of the relationship, then you can go farther, deeper, wilder, all the ers. And you can really create whatever agreements that you want to explore who you are and how much you can love and how much you can heal and how much you can transform.
I love that. I think, in the conversation Sophie and I have had with other couples and other individuals as well, sometimes there's not even the awareness, unless something has gone really, really wrong, that there is anything to heal or care for or love, right? I feel like a lot of people walk through life kind of a little numb and looking at everything sideways, so they're not actually paying attention to those cues that you're talking about. It's typically when things go really awry that somebody goes, oh crap, I never really noticed that there's this part to myself that I've been avoiding for years and years and years and years. I'm wondering what in your relationship, how long, because you guys, it's a relatively new relationship, what allowed you both to find that idea, like the notion that you want to go and explore that relatively early on?
Wait. And I want to know before that how you guys met, because I didn't hear that story yet. I just know that you appeared all of a sudden.
So we actually met at a festival called One Love. We actually met energetically. Lucian came up to me and he just started kind of like doing body work on me, but energetically, and just kind of like we non-touch energy work, and we just felt each other's fields basically and looked into each other's eyes, and there was a recognition, and I was like, what is here? And then that was it. I didn't see him for the rest of the night. And then we ended up seeing each other the next day, and just it all grew. It all grew from there. I will say that the beginning of our relationship was a little tricky. It wasn't like this easy honeymoon phase that a lot of people talk about. We actually had a lot of waves. And so I think that those waves actually initiated us into this, the question that you faced, the question that you asked. And
so, and for me, I went through a series of experiences with the feminine that really led me up to just being ready for this.
So you had your own pseudo struggles or whatever you want to call it before, and then you guys had these waves. Okay. Because normally I find that there almost has to be a pain point. There almost has to be a reason for somebody to look inside and go, wait, this isn't working. Why?
Yeah. And the thing that I think allowed us to progress, I mean, if I would have met Ashay even 6 months before, I wouldn't have been ready or had the full language. And especially with her experiences with her partner before me, we had just arrived at a spot where we had the tools, we had the experience, and we had the commitment to using the language to explore. And I think neither one of us were at that ripeness until we had met each other. So when we immediately started hitting those first waves, and she can talk more about what those waves were because it's really fascinating. we were able to actually penetrate through them. And then through that penetration, we were able to land a deep rooted, profound agreement and connection that just allowed the relationship to literally explode into a gazillion fantastic colors of magic. And literally, I mean, the most magical, happy, ridiculously, absurdly wonderful series of experiences that literally continues on. It is not stopping. It's only getting more and more and more and more. And it was really through that consciousness, that seed of consciousness that we were willing to break through and land, that made the container whole, that allowed us to really to get to the place we are now, and to be able to be of service in this way.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I think those were more adjectives to describe a relationship than I've heard in a while. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I got to hear about the waves though.
Okay,
Because this is my
yeah.
thing, right? Like there are people listening right now, and so much of what you talked about has to do with almost like serendipity, right? Getting to the right place at the right time with the right person that you're prepared for. Sophie talks about this all the time. Marianne Williamson, the people that are put in your life are put there for the maximum learning experience. And so here it is, and you are both ready to learn, which is great. What I find is a lot of times people get stuck in the suffering, and there's so much darkness that they think it's never going to go away. And so that's the reason why I like to hear and talk about the waves or the experiences right before, because I feel like that's what gives people hope, is to go, oh my God, that's what I'm going through right now. That means there might be potential for growth on the other side of my suffering.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay, let's go right into it. So, first of all, when we met, I was in my consciousness, I was saying, I'm practicing celibacy, I'm not dating anyone, I'm just not there, because I was basically going through a process of releasing my need for the masculine to bring something to me that I couldn't give myself. So basically I was going through a process of healing my inner masculine. I've taught women how to honor and move into their feminine for so many years. And I had this strength in my femininity, but in my consciousness, I was reaching out to masculine qualities had to come from a man. And so I was actually really practicing that when we met. And when we first started getting to know each other, one of the biggest things that started the waves was that I had so many expectations for who the quote unquote one was going to be, who my partner was going to be. And I was holding off, and I was going, no, I'm going to hold off because you're not being that, or you have this quality, and that is not on my list that I made a month ago, right? So all these a bunch of people will tell you that if you want to manifest a partner, make a list of everything that they're going to have, and
Be as detailed as possible.
Yes. So in my mind, I had all of these things, and then I was going, well, he doesn't have that. Well, he doesn't have that. Meanwhile, I really enjoyed his presence, and I really enjoyed sharing space with him, but I was so tripped up in my mind. And a lot of it, to be honest, had to do with how masculine or not masculine I thought he was. And I was just so in my mind about that whole thing that it created a lot of separation and distortion in our connection. And that's what really started the waves. Yeah.
So, again, so many things I love, right? We all come with templates. We all come with ideas of what's supposed to happen. And then we go through experiences and we learn, well, that's not really the way I want it. And maybe I need to change my opinion about something, in this context, in the context of what we're talking about here, relationships. But what I'm hearing is you landed in a place where you actually thought you finally got grounded. You landed in a place where you thought, okay, now I know what I want. And you wrote it down, you're really specific about it, and now you had this entire image in your head of what you're looking for. And you're right, we hear that all the time, right? We hear, get really specific about how you want to achieve your goal. And I'm hearing what that does a little bit at least is it blocks away your ability to accept and cherish and adore other things that are coming up in your life because they don't
Be present.
I think that's what it is right there. So I could literally feel, and this goes back to like being ready for something like this, because if someone would have done this to me a year before, I would not be aware that this is what she was fully doing. But essentially what she was doing was she was, because of a couple of moments that were really strong for her, she then projected a story of who I was in her mind. And she began to create and fulfill that story in all the moments that came after it about how masculine or not masculine I was. And so at a certain point, especially depends, she's an extremely strong woman and powerful creator. So especially when you're with a very powerful personality, I could have actually fell into her story.
Right.
And so it took a level of conscious communication and conversation and like catching where that's happening, and also being intuitive and being aware that she's doing that, because many times she did it silently.
Sure.
So
because she retreated, right?
She's retreating.
She saw that you're not presenting what she wanted, so she backed away because she said, well, I shouldn't connect to this person because he's not the thing that I need.
And then I was feeling that that's what it was. It was almost like a spell, right? So then I had to find a way to continue to offer opportunities for that to dissolve.
That's awesome.
Through truth.
This is a little bit like, although in an avoidant way, what Sophie and I talk about when we talk about the going in for the punch. So we have this concept where when somebody is speaking to you in a way you don't appreciate, or making you feel negatively about yourself, embarrassing you, shaming you, whatever that is, or literally attacking you, that we have this proclivity to just put our hands up and defend ourselves or fight back, right? Because that's the programming we've had over years and years and years is, oh, you can't do that to me. I'm going to show you. And that unfortunately in real intimate relationships, that never works. That will never get you where you actually want to go. So as soon as you do that, you are dooming the relationship unless one of you figures it out. It sounds like maybe that's part of where the waves were and you were in a place where you could do this. And somebody puts their hands down and goes, I don't need to fight you on this. And is able to have an actual clear, intimate, connected conversation about what's happening in the moment. So what was the response like?
Well, I realized there was a moment that I realized, wow, I had this whole list and I thought I needed this, and this. But that was what I needed based on my ego. That was what I needed based on built trauma. That was what I needed based on what didn't work in my last relationship. That is not what my soul needed. Like my soul needed this. And I wasn't able to see that because I was creating these expectations. And the moment that those expectations were not met, it was almost like I would just give up all. I was just like, oh no, he's not the one, right? And so ultimately I wasn't being present. I wasn't just being in the moment and receiving. And so I couldn't actually also be my full self. Lucian says at the beginning, he couldn't fully see my eyes at the beginning of our connection. And I think that it's because I had, it's almost like I was in my mind the whole time, like this brain trip. And I was in my head and kind of going, is he passing my test? Is he passing that test? Is he passing that test when we hung out together? And then by doing that, I wasn't able to just relax my body, relax my mind, relax my thoughts, and just be present and contribute to a moment or contribute to creating what I actually did want, And so it almost made me...
also receiving what you really want.
And receiving what I wanted, yeah. So it almost made me like... It took me, I would say I love to be a really giving person, but I actually was not giving because I was always going, when is he going to give me what I need versus are we going to create what we both want, what I want together? How do I create what I desire instead of just sitting back and going, this is it or this is not it?
And there's one piece that she mentioned that's really powerful, which is, she said, creating the story in the mind with the ego based on a past trauma. And so one of the things that she rejected in me in the beginning was my humor. So I'm a silly kind, like, and she also interpreted my silliness as non-masculine, non-strong, like not strong, And so once we actually broke through the whole piece, we identified, and it came to the surface once she surrendered and sort of went into it, that it was connected to actually the person that she loved the most in her life, her first relationship, who I reminded her a lot of, and it was like he was extremely silly and humorous. And then because of the trauma and the betrayal, she attached betrayal to these certain personality traits that then she rejected in her consciousness. And it was and then once we broke through that, it's like we were cracking up every day. And we had totally transmuted.
I love that. And I also just have to say how impressed I am with how early, I mean, you can just see how much work you both did as individuals to be able to show up to each other in that way. I mean, I was really young when I met Adi. I was 20 and now I'm 33. And like the arc, like who I've become and the growth and the work I've done, with him by my side, but with him by my side, not on my own, and then combining forces. So I just have to honor that. Like, that's so beautiful. When did you meet?
6 months ago.
6 months
September.
ago. Yeah.
Beginning of September.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, some of the parallels. It's come up in conversations even in the last few years, because this is kind of ongoing work, right? If you find a person that you really are connected to, the work keeps happening, because hopefully you keep uncovering and you keep discovering and keep educating yourself and the other person about growth forever. And so every once in a while, like when Sophie and I are together and in our best places, there's nothing but acceptance, right? You fully accept the other person as they are, but you feel the resistance come up depending on how one of us is doing at any given moment. And the humor thing is really funny that you brought that up, because when we first met, you said silly, mine is sort of like the cheesiest humor on earth. I mean, when my joke is coming up when it's coming up, but I say it, right? Everybody else just goes, oh, that's the line that would come up here. I'm the one who says that line. And it would really piss Sophie off, kind of like, that's a joke everybody knows right now. I'm like, yeah, that's why it's funny. I like it. And it would take years. It literally took years. And this is the funny thing, is I went through so much shame and experiences that honestly just embarrassed the crap out of me for so many years before I met Sophie, that I was kind of done being embarrassed. And all the work that I'd done was about owning who I am. Now, over the last 8-9 years, since we've gone through our own trials and tribulations, I've discovered even newer elements of that piece to myself. But I love when those moments come up now, to just be able to say kind of like, hey, this is who I am. Like, I'm all in for discovering new elements and new pieces to life, but we got to do this together. The attacking sort of, you are not enough, or this is not appropriate, that doesn't work here. And it's really nice when that happens, because I think we're now at this place where as soon as somebody recognizes that that's happening, we go, oh, and everybody puts their gloves down and we have a real conversation about what's happening.
I think also just continuing, like you said, like it's an ongoing process of doing the work and uncovering and coming back and showing back up to the drawing board and seeing things as they are and not how we think that they should be. And how they just keep, it's about being aware in your own growth and also your partners.
Right.
And staying authentic to that. So sometimes it is like, hey, this is who I am and I'm in I need to honor this. And other times it's like, yeah, I'm kind of being an asshole. Like I don't need to hold on to that. Like there's no reason. Like I'm just going to let go of my gloves right now and just like love you or whatever it is. And then I think it's not as cut and dry as like, this is who I am and I'm going to be myself. It's more like honoring and being true and not being an ego and just being like, oh, this is what I need right now. And I would love you to show up this way for me if you can. And then the other person being like, okay, I can do that, or I can't. I can hold space for that, or I can't. And just
and either way is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you're being true and your partner knows, like we have each other's best interest. We hold each other in the greatest light. And as long as that understanding is there, then it doesn't come off as kind of being controlling or trying to change the person.
Yeah. And I think when you mention that the work continues and it grows, I think a really powerful way to look at it is, when anything arises in the relationship, in intimacy that is challenging or that is conflictual, to say to each other, like, yes, here it is. Like, we found another piece.
It's a
like,
gift.
good. Yes, this is a gift. Like, let's go into this and make it fun.
Yeah.
Instead of going, oh, not again. Why'd you have to do that? What are we really is this really happening again? No. And instead,
It's showing up for you.
it's showing up for us. And so it's a gift. It's ultimately one of the biggest blessings of intimacy, is that all of these places within ourselves arise and show up, and we have a really fast way to transform because we have a mirror in front of us. So that's actually why we wrote an ebook called Triggered, and we went really deep into triggers, and you might want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I'm just going to frame it by, this is something you were saying too about the suffering. Friction, like suffering is a form of friction. Okay, and there's mild suffering, which is a mild friction, all the way to intense suffering. And friction is the energy that alerts us to the moment. Without friction, we're not caught, we're not awoken to the moment. And so when you're triggered, and there's all different types of triggers, and we actually, in the book, we created the trigger equation, which has all the variables for all the different types of triggers that can happen in relationship, and the subsequent power of the energy that results from those variables and the trigger itself. And there's all kinds. But triggers are the gift. They're the opportunity, and the energy of suffering is the soul offering to itself the moment of awareness that says, this is your opportunity to awake more to what you want, actually.
Yeah. It's the same work I do so I work a lot with addicts and people who struggle with all sorts of compulsive behaviors and addictions. And I always go back to the fact that slip-ups and those moments of being triggered are your teachable moments. That's exactly how you're going to find your path. Without those road marks, you're not going to know which way to go. And so instead of running away from them, and instead of feeling like a failure every time you run across one of them and saying, oh my God, here I am again, why am I thinking about this? Here's an opportunity, as you mentioned. It's now let's look at this. We get to look at it from all angles and say, oh, this identifies a part to this problem that you never really thought of before. Now we get to do the deep work. And that's the part I love doing, is that deep work, because people discover things. I had a guy in the course just yesterday. He signed up he's in Australia. So he signed up at like 3 a.m. for me. And in the morning, I got an email from him saying, it's this recorded videos that I created. And he said, the first module, which is like 40 minutes of a video that I pre-recorded and then has some exercise to go with. He said, and I already know why none of the things that I did before worked, because they never addressed these stories, these backgrounds, these traumas, these things that have happened in the past. They kept trying to put a Band-Aid on the symptom that was showing up.
Right.
And that's
the symptom only. Yeah,
that's never going to solve anything. And it's powerful in a relationship to have another partner who's willing to do that work with you, because so many things that you've already said today could be really big triggers, especially for men, right? My partner didn't think I'm masculine enough can by itself trigger a guy to do some pretty fucked up shit. Because I've grown up, many men have grown up believing that that's the sacred cow you defend to the death, right? Your masculinity. And to have somebody say that to you and say, wait, why do you think that's not masculine? What makes you say that? Instead of saying, how dare you, and starting to attack. That's powerful, because to me, that is the masculine, right? The masculine is the internal security of knowing that I'm good. I don't need you to tell me, or I don't need to show you how masculine I am. I'm solid. And if we start from that base point, which is difficult for a lot of guys, I had to go through a lot to get to that place. But if you start there, you can actually turn to your partner when you're not feeling super masculine, you're not feeling super strong, or where the feminine picks up for you, and be open about it, because that doesn't threaten. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not like because I'm allowing feminine aspects of myself in that I somehow have given up the masculine parts. And that's a really big part for men, I know, that they really hide from a lot. If anything pseudo-feminine comes up in their head, they will run for the hills with a sword in hand to kill the next thing they see, just to prove how masculine they can be.
Well, and guess what? It wasn't even that I needed more masculine. I needed more femininity for myself. And so what I was actually craving was myself. I was craving my freedom, my creativity, like my being as wild, the wild feminine. And I was blaming him. I was going, you're not masculine. But really what I wanted was polarity. I wanted my extreme feminine essence to come through, which
Be invoked.
What?
To be invoked.
To be invoked, yeah. And so when I started taking full responsibility and ownership for that and going, oh, it's not, I'm not going to focus on what you're being or not being. You get to choose that. I'm going to choose how I am in myself for me, because I want to be this person for myself and in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see what happens. And from there, it was just like, pshoo.
Well, what happened at the same time is right when she did that, I then stepped in and said, regardless of what you think or whatever you're projecting in the moment, I am so great with where I'm at. So exactly what you're speaking to. And then also that I'm not attached, that I just like being with you. And we're going to remove any story that we're going to be together. We're going to remove everything, in fact, and we're just going to be together and just hang out. And when we did that night,
Changed everything.
Literally, we were like, who are these people standing in front of us? And from that moment, it was on.
So just to reframe, we really created a container together where we got together and we said, let's just experience our souls in the same room. Let's just be. Let's just hang out. Let's remove all of this story about what it's supposed to look like when you're dating someone, how we're supposed to engage. None of that. Let's just hang out and see what happens. And we got to see and receive each other in the highest light, and we just were astounded.
Yeah. And it was, it happened so fast and so furious that, I experienced this in another phase in my life, but since that moment happened, days feel like weeks, and in the best way. Like the amount of experiences that we have in a single day, because the amount of consciousness we put on everything, are just so full and so rich and so dynamic that it just feels like a lot in like a great way.
That's awesome.
And maybe you can talk about like how we allow ourselves to change and shift and to be multidimensional and to have all different aspects of ourselves. Because one of the things that we find and I definitely find we find in working with couples and I've worked with women for many years, is that we put expectations on our partners to be a certain way. So let's say you met in a certain energy. It was sexy and fluid and fun. Well, is this person supposed to be sexy, fluid, and fun for the rest of their lives? Or can they morph? Can they change? Can they have a million different characters inside of their being? Can they have a million different voices that they do, right? And so how can we allow, so that's another thing that I wasn't doing, was I was saying, I just want this masculine, feminine polarity, and I wasn't allowing the relationship to breathe and for us to change and shift and to move into different aspects.
So can I ask in a pretty kind of direct way? So
Yeah.
You've made these realizations, you're spending time together, and what's the actual communication like now, let's say, because one of the realities, like you just opened it up in terms of different aspects of your personality, is that sometimes you're not in the same place. Like, what do you now do to allow those shifts in the other person so that you can trust, you can be okay, the relationship doesn't struggle, doesn't parlay onto that, but that each one of you gets to experience what you feel like in the moment and to the fullest capacity?
So So awareness is one, acceptance is the other, acceptance of yourself and of the other. For us, accepting that we seek and love a multi-dimensional relationship, multi-aspected. Like if you look at a jewel, it has so many different aspects to it. We name all of those aspects. So like we literally have a roster of characters that we attribute to different stages or states of being. And it allows us to actually interface with those different beings in ourselves. And and even within that, like, before I met Ashay, I spent a year doing these things called soul mapping. So I create maps for people that allow them to like write out all the different aspects of themselves, both in the light and in the shadow. And then they get to name them. But I had never used that mapping process in a relationship where we actually are naming all of those things. And then if my wizard is out and her fairy is out, well, it's go time. If my wizard is out and her barbarian queen is out, it's a totally different vibration. So like really working with assigned archetypes and characters and energies and naming them and talking about the types of aspects that come out. It's almost like, if you love to cook, it's really understanding all the recipes and how the different ingredients flow. And the more sophisticated and the more language and nomenclature that you can create around your relationship with all those aspects, the less personal you take something that really just needs a lens to understand.
I love that. I think that's amazing. I mean, especially when you have children, when you've been married for years, when you both have your own businesses, all of these things that make us who we are, and we show up to a certain space, and like we don't really have the luxury of like, let's sit and download for an hour. Okay, and now let's go be free and go on a date or go out on a town. We don't have that luxury right now, which is fine because we're on a path of parenting and doing these things. But showing up to each other and being aware, whatever we would call your work mode, work mode. Like when he's in work mode, he is just, and it's so easy for me to take it personally. It's so easy for me to be like, he's not paying attention to me. He's neglecting me. Like if I put on the lens of like, he's in work mode, as long as he's also giving the balance and the space to honor our relationship and be in like loving a D, but as long as you can see it that way, I just think it's so refreshing because it is, like I have my pregnancy on almost all day, every day, like whatever that lens is, like I'm tired and I want to be touched and nourished and loved constantly. Like I just want someone to love me because I'm in pain. And if he understood that, then, and because I'm growing a human, that too.
Wait, what?
This is the one where we come out about the baby. Yeah, I think it would just shift our dynamic and our relationship, and it could be really helpful.
All right, so people are listening. They identify with triggers. They identify with I'm multidimensional, and there are different aspects to my personality, and I can see how that enters into my relationship, and I can see how that affects the people I'm around. But a lot of people don't really know what to do about it, right? So first of all, their partner might not be listening right now, or they might want actual exercise, some actual tips that they can employ in their life to either, like you just said, label these things or to allow these aspects of their personality and the process to actually enhance the relationship instead of hurt it. What do you guys do for that?
So when you get triggered, take a deep breath, become present, and have an exchange where you're really able to receive what's happening to you. Be present with what's happening to you. And then let's say you're triggered 3 times in the day. You have 3 experiences with your partner. They're different. They have different themes, right? They may be all around the same energy. They may be totally different. But what we started doing was acceptance, forgiveness, receiving, processing. And then at the end of the evening, when you put the kids to bed or when you've finished your work, you offer each other always 15 to 20 minutes before you go to bed to offer unconditional reflection. So it basically what we do is we'll start by let's say I start first. I will say firstly what I loved about today with her, like moments that were beautiful, and then I'll talk about what I experienced when we were triggered, what I thought, what I went through, just like raw, like just exactly like just start like really just from my heart and also through my mind, like all the things I was thinking and feeling as that thing happened. And with no intention on saying how we're going to resolve it, with no opportunity to prove a point, I'm just allowing it to come through. And then she will do the same. And then we honor each other. And then we just allow that to be fully presenced.
That's cool. We have a check-in that we do almost the exact same thing with. There's some identification elements to it, like some affirmations that you put in it in terms of who you are in the moment. But I love the reflection without response piece. The here's who I am, and I'm not looking for you to acknowledge it or make it okay or not, or say that it's a bad thing.
No feedback.
Yeah.
No feedback. It's just you expressing what your experience is. There's no right and wrong. There's no judgment. It's just, this is my experience, and the other person holding space for you.
And that's such a part of relationships anyway, right? I mean, I'm going to spend, by the time we're done with this, I'm going to spend 80 years with you. If not, if you bite my finger, because then I might have to go. But if I'm going to spend 80 years with you, I want the growth, right? I want you to be able to be who you are in every moment and share in it, not change you, not tell you you're good or bad, because you get your own process. We all get our own processes. We all have our path. We always kind of say, you don't even have to develop in parallel. It's more just about, I need to check in with you. I need to know what's going on for you so that I feel connected and tethered somehow and not let it go away. I love that.
Yeah, I feel that that's the connection. I'm just going to say one final little piece. I feel that does exactly what you said, which is it really feeds the beauty of the connection, because that presence really feeds that. And for me, what it really does is that when I do that without spending any millisecond of thinking what I'm going to say next, or what's coming, like I need to use my mind to fix or correct or to show her another way of seeing something or to enlighten her.
Oh, I love that.
Whatever that is, like just to totally surrender that and just to receive her and be in full receivership and to really listen. Then what that does for me is that when I go to bed, I feel like that whatever transmission came, my consciousness is able to process it. And whatever thing I could have said with my mind to do in that moment, my consciousness already starts doing the work by being totally receiving the seed. Then the next day, if I make adjustments, they're natural. Like it all happens in my subconscious mind. I don't need to make an effort. I've just received and allowed my vessel to really respond, which is by beingness. So that really has worked for our relationship.
That's awesome.
Yeah. This is really a key conversation about emotional intelligence, right? So most people think that if I feel, then all hell's going to break loose. But what happens when we actually allow ourselves to feel without trying to fix, without trying to solve, we just go, I'm sad and I'm going to let myself be sad, or I'm frustrated and I'm just going to feel frustrated, or I'm going to say I'm frustrated. What happens is that our soul feels heard, feels like, oh, okay, like I'm here for you. And our partner can be here for us to say, I hear you, I see you, you're not alone in this. And what happens when we feel that, when we go, okay, I'm not alone in this, well, I guess I can let it go. I guess it's like, because I'm seen. It's not something that I'm holding in anymore and harboring. And so we are so afraid of sharing our feelings, sharing what upset us, sharing what hurt our heart, sharing how we messed up, right? We're afraid because we're afraid that we'll look stupid.
Well, I think at the core of it, especially early on in relationships, but it keeps happening if you don't do this work, you're afraid the other person is going to realize who you really are. And they're going to go, oh shit, I didn't sign up for this person. I signed up for that other pretend I'm okay all the time, always a smile on your face because you're always happy person. If you've got some sadness inside and some trauma, I'm not really down for that. I'm out. I think we're so scared that if we let the other person know who we are, they'll leave. And so we do everything we can to just pretend like we're okay all the time, but we're not. And my argument for a lot of the couples we do work with, or a lot of the clients where I see one side of the relationship, I say, look, if your partner can really only take you when you're pretend happy, is that the relationship you want to be in? Is it so much worse to be out of this relationship that you would rather spend the rest of your life being dishonest with yourself and everybody else around you, what the experience you go in is? And typically, not always, but typically the answer is hell no. I would much rather actually connect to who I am. And I say, cool, now give your partner that opportunity. Let your partner have the ability to actually respond to who you really are, because you've been holding back for sometimes it's 30 years. By the time they come in to see me, it's been 30 years they've been pretending they're another person. And I go, your person has been there with you for 3 decades. Can you trust for a moment that no matter what it is that comes out of your mouth next, they'll say, oh my God, I had no idea that was going on in your head, but I love you. And I want to figure out how to incorporate that into our relationship. And it's scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, we rob all people of the gift of meeting our true selves because we're afraid of what they may think. And so ultimately, we're afraid for ourselves to meet who we really are. And that's the biggest thing, because if we gave ourselves the fullest permission to go to say what we need to say and to whatever it looks like, then we get to see ourselves in this beautiful capacity. And so it's like, that's why when you're also in a partnership where you are speaking, you are sharing, and you are communicating, you're also growing into your higher self. You're stepping into your power. You're seeing more of your gifts. So it's like you want to create a business, or you want to go out into the world and be more and show more and share more and shine more, right? Be alive, be fully alive, because you're seeing yourself through the lens of that partnership, but only when you're communicating, only when you're bringing through exactly how you're feeling, only when you are being alone and doing reflections and then offering those reflections to your partner and working together to show up fully. That's it. Like, how can I show up fully to this relationship?
Yeah. And I got to say, I mean, I'll say baby steps, right? So a lot of people, again, who are kind of listening right now, this is a foreign concept. Wait, you're saying I can just actually be myself and that's okay? And what I always tell people is just start where you are. And I'm always a big believer in whatever mindfulness, whatever meditation you can put into your life to just start looking. That's all that really gives you. People expect that meditation. I have pretty impulsive ADHD kind of mind. And so my mind doesn't get quiet during meditation, but at least I get to hear what it says versus all the other times when there's distraction around. I tell people just start where you are. Listen to what you're saying to yourself and then act on that next thing and put that into action in your life. And I love what you were talking about, doing it right before sleep. When we're good about it, we do the check-ins before sleep, but I'd like to maybe start doing those a little bit more again because we haven't in a little bit. I love an element, and I have a feeling this will make it into the pre-interview part to this, and that is when you go to sleep is when your brain actually does all the processing of everything that happened that day, and it keeps the good stuff. It keeps what was important enough from the day to maintain, the stuff that's going to be in your memory 10, 15 years, a week from that day. And so if you do this right before you go to sleep and you don't say anything, you just allow yourself to absorb what your partner brought in, then that will get incorporated into the way you see the world. And so the next day when you wake up, you will actually have a little bit more of your partner incorporated into the way that you see the world versus the way you've been walking around for decades already anyway, and you don't need any more reinforcement of that one. And so I love the idea of letting yourself go to sleep with kind of your partner's input just lodged in there. So you can process, and all that subconscious stuff can happen overnight. And when you wake up the next day, it's like, if anybody plays piano or any kind of skill, you practice it during the day and the next day you're actually better at it. Not that day so much. It takes a little time for your brain to process everything. And so that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, how many couples are going to sleep next to each other in the same bed, but feeling in their hearts separate? Like, their backs are together back to back, and they're just like, I mean, I was in a relationship like that where I was just in my heart, I was going, this feels weird, and what's really going on? And just in my head as I was going to sleep, trying to figure everything out, and maybe it'll be better tomorrow. And what could I have done? And he did this. And I was literally like, just sleeping with that in my mind, rather than turning over, putting my hand on his heart and saying, I need to share something. That's all it takes, right? That's all it takes, is that vulnerable step. And so for anyone who's listening to this, if you even just resonated with that one little piece, like you're in bed next to your partner and you're feeling any honor, any tinge of separation in your heart, and speak to it with love. With love. No blame, not you did this. I need to tell you what you did wrong today. No. I need to tell you how I feel. That's it.
Owning your feelings.
Into me, I see. Intimacy. Into me, I see.
Me, I see.
And if I may, we've been talking a lot about triggers and shadow, and but I just want to sort of add that the other major thing that we do is we make sure that our relationship is like the most kick-ass invitation to have the very best time that we can imagine in our lives. Like joygasm is the core to our...
This is your life.
This is our
it.
life. This is
right
it.
now. It's happening.
So that same energy and activity that we put on creating activities for us to process and do the work is the same energy that we do around making the most epic days ever.
Epic days, epic sex life, epic connection, epic just experience.
Yeah, we dungeon master each other's magic like as much as we possibly can. And I don't know if you want to talk about the desire thing, but yeah.
Well, we have some questions we want to ask you now.
Yes,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Should we have them answer it for each other, or should we
Ask a question. Let's see what comes
Okay. So what is the best advice you have ever received? This could be about your coupleship or just individually.
You go.
The best advice that I've ever received.
Oh, I know mine.
Go, girl.
I'm saying it in one word. Surrender. Surrender. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go.
You remember who?
Or how?
The universe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Source.
Totally.
Myself. Intuition.
Let it go.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
I think the wisdom when I realized, I don't know who I said it to. I don't know whether it was through a journey or through a moment but really the moment where I realized that you are me. When I started interpreting the world that through the lens of oneness, it really just shifted everything for me. It just shifted the way I engage with people.
That's awesome.
Your lens.
What has been your proudest moment? And in this, I think maybe I want to hear about relationship proudest moment for this one.
Okay, well, yes, I'm so excited to share this one. So I would say a week ago, we had our first retreat, where we call it the Chrysalis, where we invite a couple into our space and we hold really powerful, transformative container for them to ultimately grow and step into their greatest level of togetherness. And I was blown away by the transformation and evolution that this couple had, but I was also just so blown away by our co-creative gift and the safe container that we held together and our collective voice and what we brought to each of those individuals for their individual lives and their lives separate. And we did reflections with them this lasted all night. They left at probably 6 a.m. and they said, one of the things that they said was, before this night, we thought we were going to get separate, and now I know that we're getting married. So it was in that moment that the whole night, but especially in that reflection period, I got to see the gift that we are offering each other first, and then the world, right? The space that we're holding, and how our relation, their transformation was a confirmation of the beingness that we hold together and our missions for the planet, but also just how that is just beginning to really affect union and love and really powerful intimacy on this planet. So it's just so blessed to receive that.
That's got to be, it's always beautiful to see the transformation in somebody else reflected back to you. It's a gorgeous thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to flip that. And what has been one of your hardest moments?
In this relationship, what was one of the hardest moments?
I mean, for me, an extremely hard emotional moment was really the moment before we finally truly came together, which was we had a night of intense shadow and projection, and it was as if both of our minds were just like, this isn't it. This isn't going to happen. And I was really fighting that. And then I just surrendered to it. I just let her go, in that deep way. And I don't think I've ever, I think we held each other crying for I don't even know how long, but it was the most I'd ever cried consistently. And we both were just in that. And we couldn't even explain why we were crying so much. Just felt this unbelievable sadness. And so that was deeply beautiful, but hard.
Mm-hmm. All right. If you could each name your number one self-care ritual, what would it be? For yourselves as individuals.
So, wake up, stretch, Wim Hof. For those who are Wim Hof fans, Wim Hof has transformed my life. It's a deep breathing and super cold shower technique that invigorates the cells. A little rapé, for those of you who know rapé is, it's a medicinal tobacco that clears the sinuses and clears the mind. 10-minute meditation, 10-minute stretch, 5-minute journal, 5-minute reading of something that's exciting, making a magical spirulina smoothie with coconut every morning, and then begin my day. And that whole sequence was really co-created with my beloved. And it literally, that ritual has completely changed and activated me in a way that is night and day in terms of my awareness, my centeredness, my ability to take on the full day with full creativity and magic.
Totally.
And it's a super powerful process.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
And for me, I've had a morning practice pretty similar to that for a while, but I would say right now, the practices that I come back to all the time that are my deepest self-care actually is eye gazing with myself in the mirror for something like 5 minutes and just really looking into myself and allowing myself to see who I am and what I'm bringing through and love myself and let go of any story that I was holding, because I find that oftentimes the ego kicks in, or the projections of the mind kicks in around who I think I am. But when I look at myself in the mirror, all of that drops away and I get to really presence myself to my divinity. So that's number one. And then touching my body every day with love, whether that's a breast massage or just like massaging myself. It's just like giving my body love and affection. And I know that touch is my love language and we have a lot of affection together, but I still need to love my body and to touch my body and care for my body and breathe into my body. So I would say those two things, like definitely embodiment, whether that's touching myself or dance or just like breathing into putting my hands on my heart and taking 10 really long, deep breaths, and then eye gazing.
All right. Yes. And so this podcast is called Ignited. And we always like to ask our guests, what is the thing that ignites you the most? What is the thing that just fires you up?
Go without thinking.
Okay, I have two.
Okay.
So the first one that came to me is really creative, empowering, beautiful sexual experiences with my beloved that just like completely lights my spirit up. I'm such an embodiment person. So getting into my body, into my sexuality, into expression, into expressing love through this body and feeling the power of pleasure. Wow, that's for me. And also dance and just really good music, really, really good like electronic music to just get down with. That
Nice.
Ignites me.
That's awesome. A
So,
little EDM party.
Definitely getting down
With what?
With this one. I'd say creating something from nothing and having. I cherish and get super ignited by having an agendaless day where you don't have any goal except to enjoy each other and just to discover what can happen.
Yeah,
and
those are fun.
And it's just amazing, and we do that a whole lot more. And it's probably the most ignited moments that we've had in the last month were from just offering that to myself.
Very cool.
What a gift that is. And for anyone that feels like they can't do that, for me, I'll just offer myself a half day. Like for me, like the day I pick up my kids at 12, it's their early day on Wednesdays. That morning is just free flow. Whatever happens, the morning just lets me take it. And I'm all of a sudden cleaning something or organizing something. And then I'm working on my moon trainings. And then it just allows, and even that 3-hour block is such a gift. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I have a feeling that if people were driving during this one, they had to pull over for a little while, at least in the end. But thank you. Thank you for coming in and sharing your experiences and your hearts and your souls and just being honest. I think people love that the most. And I know you've got some things coming up, and we'll put links to them in the show notes to let people know about courses and retreats and everything they can do with you guys. And we can't wait to continue seeing your growth.
Thank you so much. We're such a blessing to be here.
Honor and blessing. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And thank you, everybody, for listening. We will see you next week. Bye. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.